Welcome to the Center Ice Hockey Podcast with your hosts, Ryan Atkinson, Matt Minchin, Nino Lagambina, and Tom Dixon. Die-hard NHL fans covering the latest news at the center of the hockey universe.
Welcome to another episode of the Center Ice Hockey Podcast. I'm Ryan Atkinson.
I am Nino Lagambina.
I'm Tom Dixon.
And I'm Matt Minchin.
And today we're going to get started off talking about everything that's been going on around the NHL since Wednesday when it started. And let's start off with the Sabres home opener, which was on Thursday night. We all went to that, and the Sabres looked great. They did lose to Montreal in the shootout, and Drouin pulled off a silky move on Lehner. But it was a great game, and I really loved how the Sabres looked. They looked quick, and it was pretty refreshing to watch.
Yeah, it was definitely a different style of hockey than what we're used to. You could definitely see Phil Housley's new system going to work, and I don't know. I felt like when I was watching it, it was just a more exciting game to watch than what we've seen in years past.
Yeah, I think one of the proponents of that was when after the game when Pacioretty had his comments about just like how fast that we played. He said, they played really fast. We had to adjust to it. We're not used to that style of play from that team. And I'm going to harken back to something that you said to me during the game, Ryan. I think we were at something like 40 shots at the time, and then you said, last year with Dan Bilesma's system, we never would have sniffed 40 shots. So,
in Housley's new system, the defensemen jump up in the play, and it's awesome to watch. I love how quick we transition, which was the best part to watch. Pacioretty did say that. He actually mentioned how quick the defense was, and he said it was very, very fast, which I love. Even if it causes extra goals against on the Sabres, because, that's a lot of transitioning to do. That's a lot of skating. It's just so much better to go and see. It's so much more entertaining. With Bilesma, we were just way too conservative.
Yeah, I loved seeing Antipin and Boyu jumping up on the rush every time they got the chance to. Antipin basically at times is looking like a winger out there, and he has the skill to do it. I just love seeing him jump in on the rush.
Yeah, I've been saying this ever since the preseason started. I love the way that Boyu jumps into the play. He looks like he's ready to jump in and get involved in the offense every time he's on the ice, and I just love that about him.
Yeah, him and Antipin are really exciting to watch when they're out there.
To get a guy like that for a third-round pick from Montreal, like a good top-4 back-end guy in your defense who can also score you a good amount of goals, I think that's going to be really valuable for the Sabres this year.
Well, yeah, they got rid of him because Julian plays a conservative style of hockey, and Beaulieu likes to jump up in the rush, and he didn't really fit his system, so he started becoming a healthy scratch last year, and we picked him up. I really liked how Jack Eichel looked, too. They were trying to figure out some chemistry and really smoothing out the lines, but that pass to Pominville backdoor was ridiculous.
That was filthy.
Oh, yeah. We had front row seats to that. Me, Tom, and Nino did, because I know you were up in the 300s, dudes. Anyways, if they had won, it was probably the best Sabres game I've ever been to.
Yeah, especially with Palmer scoring the 2 goals in the beginning, lighting the building up. But that Eichel pass, that was just a great play by him all in general. Shrugs off the one guy, turns around, feeds a pass to Palmer about 40 feet, right on the dime, and it was just, I don't know. I could definitely see that connection working out all year.
Oh, yeah. Him and Pominville absolutely have a lot of chemistry. It's great. It just, how are you going to get Kane involved? Because Pominville works perfectly for what Eichel likes to do. He likes to, obviously manhandle the puck and get into open space. And Palmer's really good at finding holes in the defense where he can set up for Jack. But, I don't know. I'm kind of worried about how Evander Kane's going to work into that line, because with Jack and him both being puck possession type players and Evander really being shoot first all the time, I don't know if he's suited to play with Eichel, to be honest with you.
No, I can understand that, but you saw it in the game on Thursday. He's a great guy for jumping up, going hard into the forecheck, being aggressive with the puck, and kind of digging out those loose pucks. I like him on that line just for that fact that he can go and he can dig out loose pucks. He's great on the forecheck, super aggressive.
Yeah, the one thing I'd just like to say is the electricity in the crowd when Pominville scored that first goal, that backhand against Carey Price. That was one of the loudest times I've ever been in that building. It was incredible watching Pominville come back and score that goal, and Twitter was going crazy. I just loved every second of it.
Yeah, it was great. But what I do have to say is I was not pleased about how O'Reilly and Okposo played. Didn't they put a couple different guys on that wing with them, or was it just
I believe
just Gergensen's?
Pouliot started the game on the second line.
Yeah, it was Pouliot.
I'm not 100% sure if anyone played on that line. Maybe they threw Gergensen's up there at one point, but they just couldn't get the speed going, I don't think. They couldn't generate any chances in the offensive zone.
That's the thing, is I'd almost like to see Evander Kane on that line, because Pouliot he's decent, but he's kind of slow. And, O'Reilly and Okposo aren't exactly speed demons. I really wasn't happy watching Okposo. Obviously he's a good player. I like Okposo. Normally he's usually plays as one of the best players on the team, one of the smartest players. He's really good with the puck. I wasn't impressed on Thursday, though. And O'Reilly, I know there's a lot of different things that go on in the game that you can attribute to losing, especially in a close game like we lost against Montreal. But I think that game's on O'Reilly with that bad turnover. That's easy for Drouin to make that pass, that filthy saucer pass over to Pacioretty, and puts it in the back of the net. That's not on Lehner, and that's not on anybody except for O'Reilly.
Yeah, for sure. I agree with you. Okposo looked pretty good, though, in the overtime period.
He did. He was generating chances, but I just wasn't pleased with. He has to play better than that.
Yeah, I get what you're saying that you want to throw Kane on that line, though, Ryan. But the problem with me with that is, who are you going to throw on top with Eichel's line then?
That's a tough question.
Right,
just,
we're strapped at left wing.
Right,
basically what we're.
Yeah,
we're
not deep at all at that position. I know he's not great, but you have to even out the lines a little bit. You can't just have O'Reilly and Okposo looking like they did, and have Pouliot playing with them, and then just have Kane kind of wasting away on that top line because he didn't look like he had a ton of chemistry with Jack and Palmer. I almost would like to try out Pouliot on the top line with Jack and Palmer, and Evander Kane with Okposo and O'Reilly.
It'd definitely be good bringing speed to that second line, but it's just, I don't know if Pouliot really fits the kind of style that you're looking for Jack and Palmer to play either.
Well, if anything, he could be a setup guy coming out of the zone. He's just got to stay on the half wall and get the transition game going. But when he's in the offensive zone, Jack takes over. It's not a question of who else is going to have the puck or who's going to be taking shots. It's going to be Jack quarterbacking everything going on in the offensive zone when his line's out there. So that's what makes me feel like they do okay with Pouliot, because he's not a great skater, but Pominville's not super slow, and Jack he has world-class speed, and he's a world-class player. I don't know. I'd like to try it out because you have to get Okposo and O'Reilly going somehow. That's your second line, and you really depend on those guys. You're paying them a lot of money to produce, and they didn't look like a line that's going to produce yesterday. They had some decent opportunities, but overall, their line looked fairly easy to stop.
I do like the option of having Reinhart as a third-line center, but Gergensons did play center mostly last year and mostly the year before that. So, you could always move Reinhart up there with Jack and Pominville, then move Kane down with O'Reilly and Okposo, and then move Pouliot down with Gergensons and Seth Griffith.
Yeah, I see that too, but the way people feel about Reinhart is everyone seems to love him at wing. I'm personally not a fan of that. And then not only are you putting him there to a position where it's not his natural position, he's not even going to be on his right hand then. He's going to be a left wing. And I don't know. I don't see that working too well. I would rather keep Sam as the third line center. I thought on Thursday he looked and played great, to me, honestly. Had a couple really good scoring chances in front. That line wasn't doing awful. Seth Griffith really surprised me in the way he played, and I think that's a line that they should definitely keep for a decent third line.
Yeah, I was really surprised when Seth Griffith made the team, but he really proved that he belonged there in that first game. He really impressed me on that line with Reinhart. I think those guys really had a lot of chemistry.
It was Gergensons on the wing, right?
Yeah, it was Gergensons, Reinhart, and then Seth Griffith.
Yeah, their line looked good, but I do understand what Tom's saying. It would be intriguing. If we had any type of problems getting production out of the top six, I'd definitely be interested in moving Reinhart up to the top line right wing, and you could put Palmer on his off wing, because his job on that line is basically just to get open for shots anyways. Then you could have Evander Kane, O'Reilly, and Okposo. As far as what I've seen the last couple seasons with Evander Kane playing with O'Reilly, I like how they play together, to be honest with you. I think O'Reilly likes having a guy with that kind of speed on his line and a power forward who he can give the puck to drive the net, who likes to take the shots, because O'Reilly and Okposo just don't really have the speed to push the play, and they're more of offensive zone cycling guys who can make plays that way. They're not going to be guys who normally make a ton of plays off the rush.
So then maybe in the future, do you think you could possibly see, instead of Sam going up with Jack, maybe throw him on O'Reilly's line? In Sam's first year playing, him and O'Reilly had great chemistry together. O'Reilly was great at finding him in front of the net. And then you could pull Okposo up to Jack's line, and they would have that great cycle game going. Jack would bring the speed, and then Sam would just kind of be a reliable guy on that second line to help get O'Reilly going.
Yeah, I think the lines will be shaking around a little bit once Ivan Rodriguez comes back.
He is only kind of a bottom line player, though. I don't know if it would matter that much.
Yeah, but I'd rather have him on that third line playing with Sam and Griffith than Gergensons. Definitely brings a good amount more offensive skill, I believe.
Yeah, that's true. I would love to see Reinhart go up to that second line with O'Reilly and Kane, and then you could put Pozo up on the top line with Eichel and have Pominville play on the off wing. I think it'd be great to watch. I think they'd get so much more offensive production out of both lines, to be honest with you, because I don't know, I don't like having O'Reilly and Okposo play with another player who's even slower than they are. And I mean, not saying that they're slow, but they're not speed demons, and they need a guy who can push the play on the line.
Yeah, for sure. But then another thing I was thinking about, obviously we're strapped at left wing. Do you think they could possibly make a trade throughout the season for somebody?
I'll answer that one. I don't really think so. I think they have the guys right now in the minors that they would rather pull up than make a trade for somebody. I think they'd rather bring up like a Baptiste or a Bailey, put them on that wing instead of trading for somebody, maybe trading an asset that you already have.
Well, the problem with that is, yeah, you can bring up Bailey and Baptiste, but where are they really going to fit in? They're third or fourth line players. I know Vegas, I know this sounds crazy, but Vegas is trying a deal right now, and maybe you could possibly work out a deal to get Jonathan Marchessault. His contract's up at the end of the season. Probably doesn't want to stay in Vegas. Probably look at getting him for be the second line left wing.
Yeah, the biggest thing about bringing up Baptiste or Bailey is are you really confident with them playing those minutes?
Right. They haven't shown in the past that they can put up a ton of production. I think Bailey had 2 points in like 35 games last year.
Yeah, he didn't really produce too well.
Yeah, it's tough though. You have to give him time being young guys coming up in the league. I know I wouldn't want Jonathan Marchessault. Like I said last podcast, he's just a guy who scored 30 goals, not a 30-goal scorer. He's not going to be a guy who does that regularly. He's got some skill, but he's basically been an AHLer up till this point. He didn't really stand out to me last night on Vegas or anything. I wouldn't want to give up picks to get him, and I don't think Botterill would either. He seems like the type of guy that wants to build through the draft more. I'd definitely be more interested in bringing up Bailey, Baptiste, or Fasching, and just seeing what you could get out of them, make the team a bit deeper there, and you could bring up Reinhart to the top 6. That's just going to be something they have to figure out, obviously. But it's definitely a question mark. It's one of those things that you look at that could keep Buffalo out of the playoffs, is their depth at the left wing.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, next year it's not really going to change too much either. Nylander's most likely not going to be ready. I mean, you can make a case that Casey Middlestat will be ready, but I think he'll probably start the year in the AHL next year or something like that. Definitely need to find somebody that can fill that void, especially next year if you're looking to make a playoff push.
Right.
And right now on the team, they just don't have any guy to do that. Whether they go out and get someone in free agency over the summer or make a trade, right now it's not looking like a position that they have the fill for.
I hope that Nylander can come up and play his off wing and fill that left wing hole that we have, because Middlestat, I think, is better suited as a center. You guys know I'm a big fan of kicking O'Reilly out to wing. I want to see that. I really do. I want to see O'Reilly go out to left wing. And I don't know if that would mean we eventually possibly move Evander Kane, or if that would mean Housley relegates Reinhart to the third line permanently, because Middlestat has a ton of talent. He's such a skilled player. I think you'd want him as the second line center. You wouldn't want him as a third line center, besides maybe in his rookie year. But you'd have Reinhart go down to that third line and have Nylander play in the top 6 as a right winger, assuming both him and Middlestat end up to be, really good players. I'm extremely confident in Middlestat. We just have to see how Nylander does this year. Now, can we talk about Robin Lehner, how he got ragged on by tons and tons of Sabres fans for us losing yesterday?
Yeah, I'll start it off like this. And I know a lot of people in Buffalo aren't big Robin Lehner fans, and a lot of it goes for the hatred towards the shootout, which I don't understand. But the fact is, everybody praised Carey Price that night for making, I think, 43 saves on 45 shots. And I'm not saying Robin Lehner is even close to Carey Price, but how, after his performance, 38 saves on 40 shots, are you going to go out and blame the game on him? Time after time, he went out, he made extremely great saves to keep us in the game. Yeah, of course, there were a couple flukes, and yeah, he let in some bad goals in the shootout. But he keeps us in games. I mean, I don't understand all the hatred for him, especially in the shootout when everybody blames the shootout on him, but nobody's scoring goals anyway.
Yeah, that's the thing is, actually yesterday he didn't let in any bad goals in the shootout. It was just Drouin with the filthy move on him and put it up under the bar.
Yeah, and our team went 0 for 3 on shooters.
Yeah, but
you can't do that.
Yeah, but I mean, they did hit the post.
They did hit the post on the
shots.
first one. Still, though, that means that he's taken away the net. Even if the guy, you could say the guy had an opening and he just missed his shot. But Lehner's a big guy. I think that he probably, I forget who the shooter was. Was it Patches?
No, it was Paul Byron.
Yeah.
Oh, great. Former Sabre. Anyways, Paul Byron may have had an opening there to shoot at, but Lehner's a 6'5" goalie. You have to remember that there's going to be probably a lot of hit posts this season on him, because you get guys who are trying to pick spots. I can't put that against Lehner, having a guy coming in and hitting the post on him. I don't know. You could give your opinion on how many goalies would have stopped Druin's awesome move in the shootout.
I don't think the number's high.
Yeah, it's not that high because he put that right up under the bar even after making the move. Druin looked really good for Montreal on Thursday night. That was pretty impressive to watch. I can't wait to see him and Pacioretty on the same line for the rest of the season.
Pacioretty played on that line, right?
Yeah,
I think. Yeah, okay. I was just making sure.
Yeah, I think he fed Pacioretty on that first goal that the Montreal Canadiens scored.
The second goal.
No, because the first
it was
goal,
the first.
goal was that cross-ice pass, and then the second one was that just kind of fluke wrap around on the shorthand.
Here we go on the fluke. Okay, a lot of goalies like to play with their toe of their skate or their pad directly on the post. Lehner really likes to play with the middle of his skate, or I don't know if I'd say middle, right around that area of his skate blade on the post. And what that does is it doesn't provide as good of a seal as keeping your toe or your pad directly on the post, but he has such a large, wingspan for his legs. He can afford to do that, and it keeps the whole bottom of the net covered. And you're not going to see fluky goals like what happened on Thursday night a lot to guys when they have their skate blade on the post like that. It was extremely lucky. Basically, when Danault came around on the wraparound, the puck used the skate blade as a ramp. Lehner's skate blade won't be like that against the post the majority of the time. It'll be a little bit more flat, so the puck won't be able to skip up and over. I thought Montreal kind of stole that game, to be honest with you. I think the Sabres outplayed them. Montreal impressed me in parts of the game, and Carey Price was amazing as always, but I think the Sabres should have won that game, and I'm definitely not going to put it on Robin Lehner like a lot of people did.
Absolutely not.
No, one of my biggest pet peeves is when, people on Twitter just hop on the goalie bandwagon, just blame the goalie because, everything that happens in a loss is because of the goalie, and especially in a shootout when, your offense doesn't score, but, your goalie misses one shot. He gets undressed, so I guess it's his fault because your offense doesn't score. It's one of the stupidest things I've ever heard in my life. I mean, blaming Robin Lehner for that loss is so uneducated. You have to be the simplest fan of hockey to know that, or to think that Robin Lehner is the reason why you lost that game. It is ridiculous.
Yeah, he was the only reason you were in that game for so long.
Right, more than half the goalies in the league probably let in 3 or 4 goals that game. I don't think that you can blame him at all considering it was O'Reilly's fault. Tries to make a pass back. It was too tough a pass, and he had a guy right on him in Pacioretty. He gets pickpocketed, and it turns into a goal. But you don't see any type of heat on O'Reilly because he's a fan favorite. And as much as I love him, you have to look at that game and know that it was really O'Reilly's fault. I'm sure he knows that. I'm sure he would put the blame on himself because if that goal doesn't happen, then they obviously win 2-1. You don't know if Danault ever scores that wraparound goal. I don't know. It's a big domino effect when you have a turnover that bad that turns into a goal against. It kind of changes the whole dynamic of the rest of the game.
How about now we get into the new contracts that were signed over the week? Obviously, Jack Eichel got an 8-year deal for $10 million per for a total of $80 million, and then Nikolai Ehlers also got a new deal for 7 years, $6 million per.
I love the Jack Eichel contract. Pay him whatever you need to. He's going to be one of the best players in the league for the next 10 to 15 years. But the Ehlers one is more intriguing to me because the Eichel contract was obvious. It was coming. It definitely feels better going into the season knowing that he's already gotten paid and he's going to be here for a long time. You could just kind of sit more comfortable and watch Sabres games more easily knowing that he's here in Buffalo for the long haul. Even though he was going to be here for the long haul anyways, by better judgment, the way the NHL is structured, it's definitely more in favor of keeping players, and it's doubtful anybody would have given a large enough offer to Jack as a restricted free agent to bring him somewhere else. But the Ehlers contract I definitely found more interesting because I think they stole him as far as the contract. So I know you said the same thing, Minchin.
Oh, I thought they got an amazing deal on him. $6 million per for a guy who I believe last year put up right around
64 points and 25 goals.
Yeah, 64 points, 25 goals for a guy who's young and will probably do more than that this year. I think they absolutely stole him. Yeah. I think the huge part that played into this contract though was David Pastrnak. I think after seeing what he signed for, it kind of put him in a similar situation, and both the players honestly I think got amazing deals.
Yeah, I definitely think Ehlers went for cheap compared to what he could have got, especially, if they wait to the end of the year. I think it was smart not to do that because if you wait to the end of the year, you might be paying him $7.5 per.
Yeah, absolutely, because he can easily go out this year, especially playing with Scheifele and Line, and put up 70, 75 points. And then you're looking at 7 mil, 8 mil a year.
The big thing that I thought for Jack Eichel's contract was it was kind of based off of McDavid's deal and Draisaitl's deal in a way because, I mean, he's not going to get as much as McDavid, even if you want to pay him that much, and he deserves more than Draisaitl. So, I mean, I think they kind of gave him in between those two deals.
I agree with you, Tom. I think they really met in the middle there at $10 million. I mean, he's obviously, like you said, not McDavid, but he's a lot better than Draisaitl. So I think that, $10 million for in the next 8 years is a really, really good deal for him.
Well, I'm glad that they got it decided before the season started because if you wait to the end of the season, similar to the Ehlers situation,
Could be paying a lot more.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
He can put up 90 points, but I mean, if he puts up 90 points,
Then you're looking at paying him
probably
11
paying
and a half.
11 and a half.
Which is what they wanted to begin with, even before the season started. That's why Botterill was going to maybe wait to the end of the year to pay him to see how he did, make him prove that he's worth 11 and a half, because that's what him and his agent were asking for to begin with. And then Eichel came out with a huge compromise move for the team, left a little extra cap space, purposely took less money so the team could sign Evander Kane this coming off season, which I really loved. I thought they should have made him the captain right off the beginning of the season. I can't believe they didn't, but they said they're going to just let it happen throughout the year, and they'll see who really takes the role of captain.
Yeah, I really think that speaks a lot to his character. I mean, the fact that his agents came out and said, we advised him to not take that deal because, we could have gotten a lot more if we waited till the end of the season. And he ended up saying, you know what, no, I want to get this done now. I don't want to worry about it. And I'd also take less because I know this team is going to need to sign players at the end of the season. I think that just really says a lot about him as a person.
Anytime you see a superstar athlete taking less money, it's in benefit of the team is great. Jack, instead of making $80 million, he could have made however many.
Yeah, 90, 95.
Right. You look at that, and to us, being people who don't make millions of dollars, you look at the difference between 80 million and 90, 95 million. It doesn't seem like that much because the numbers are so ridiculously high to begin with. But for Jack Eichel, being somebody who didn't grow up with that kind of wealth, he's worked for everything that he has now as far as hockey goes. That's somebody turning down 10 to 15 million right there, which says a lot about him and how much he cares about the Sabres.
Yeah, but touching back on the captain thing, I know a lot of people did want to see him captain. I know a lot of people were making reasons for why he shouldn't be, that he's too young and all that, but I just don't understand why they're not going out and giving it to him. He's the obvious pick for the future. You're basically just delaying the inevitable at this point, and I just don't understand why.
Yeah, it was frustrating to me going with 4 assistant captains. I guess it doesn't really matter that much. As long as the team's playing well, I guess I could care less really who the captain is, but it'd be more pleasing to me to see Jack have the C because, like you said, they're just delaying the inevitable as far as it goes right now.
Yeah, I would have liked to see Risto get an A instead of Bogosian.
Yeah, I'm not happy with Bogosian getting an A. I just don't understand it. With guys like Risto on the team, Pominville's there, Bogosian's not a guy I think he should have given it to.
More than giving it to Risto, I was surprised that Palmer didn't get it. But our friend Mitch met him the one time. He said he seemed super nice. And by all accounts, he seemed super popular in the locker room there. So I don't know how surprised I am that he got an assistant captaincy. What I am surprised is that he got it over Pominville. I'm not really that surprised about Ristolainen. He's still young, and watching him, I don't know how much of a leader he really is on the team.
Yeah, but Pominville being a previous captain of the team, being someone that's been in Buffalo when they've been a successful team, I definitely think he should have got it over Bogosian.
I agree.
So I think that, a logical conclusion that we can draw from this is that tanking actually works. I get that people, think that it compromises your morals. Guys like Bucky Gleason and Mike Harrington, who both write for the Buffalo News, they were strongly against the tank when it was going on. And I think they finally figured out how wrong they were when Jack signed that contract. I mean, it's just to have that opinion that tanking somehow compromises your morals and it makes you less of a fan when you're trying to get a good player like that. I mean, I don't understand it. I just don't get it. If you're trying to get a good player, there's not many ways you can do that. You either go to the bottom, you sign a player in free agency, or you trade a whole bunch of people to get a good player. There's not that many ways. So, I mean, getting a guy like Jack Eichel for free, basically, once you draft him, when you do really bad, and then build from there is probably the best way to go.
Well, especially in the season that we did it, when we have both McDavid and Eichel sitting there. According to Bob McKenzie, who is probably the best in the business as far as analysts go, he says that Eichel probably would have gone first overall in any draft between the McDavid draft and the Crosby draft. He is a generational player in his own right, really, and we were going to be bad anyways. So I think it's asinine to expect Tim Murray to sit there and just wait for the team to waste away and maybe finish bottom 3 and hope it works out, rather than trade away assets to get more picks to build a team through the draft and land yourself in last place so that you're definitely getting either McDavid or Eichel. Now with the new draft lottery rules, you really can't do that, which I hate. I can't even tell you how much I hate the new draft lottery rules, but that's a discussion for a different time. I think it was so smart to do what Tim Murray did, and obviously he doesn't have a job in Buffalo anymore, which I'm kind of glad, to be honest with you. As much as I liked Tim Murray, Jason Botterill is doing a great job so far. But tanking was the smartest move that season, no question. Compromising the morals is, a crock of shit in my opinion. The Sabres franchise is altered forever now because we had tanked. But enough about the Sabres. Can we get into Connor McDavid just getting off to a great start already again?
Yeah, I don't know if you guys watched that game, but I did, and holy crap is that kid fast. I thought watching games last year, he was obviously quick. He was the fastest player in the NHL, but I believe Darren Dreger or someone else said this, and I'm not really 100% sure, not to quote the tweet exactly, but it's amazing because last year I thought he was the fastest player in the NHL, and he somehow managed to get even faster.
Well, pretty much all of them, especially really good players like that, they all work on their skating in the offseason because in today's NHL, speed is like the number one priority, really. But McDavid is, like you said, somehow even faster than he was last season. The goal where he just explodes up the wing there and comes in on Mike Smith and goes over the shoulder, short side there and close. It's just amazing. He really is the best player in hockey. And you know what, Minchin? As much as we've argued about Crosby and McDavid being right there with each other for best player in the game, I think, like you said, this year he's just going to take over and be the best player in the NHL. As good as Crosby is, McDavid has skill unlike we've ever seen in the NHL before. I think this year, and maybe already, he's already taken that spot for best player in the league. He's unbelievable. He's just unbelievable to watch. It's so amazing that he's in the NHL now. It's great for the game, and it's great for the league.
You know what? He makes his own breakaways, too. He doesn't receive passes for breakaways. He just takes the puck and skates by people for breakaways. It's unbelievable. I mean, I think he had 3 or 4 breakaways by himself that one game.
Yeah, I mean, I believe a minute into the game, he
just split the defenseman.
Yeah, he's at the blue
right
line. I believe TJ Brody's back there, and he just splits them. I think they said he clocked in at 40 kilometers an hour going through there, splits the defenseman, gets right alone on Mike Smith. Smith just happened to make a great save, but it's amazing what the kid can do with his legs.
Well, and that's the difference between somebody who has world-class speed like Jack Eichel and someone who has premier speed in the league like Connor McDavid. Is it's also a matter of acceleration, because Jack, you can't quite see him accelerating through tight holes like that, because as fast as he is, his acceleration is just not on McDavid's level. Obviously that makes McDavid even more of a threat, and like you said, he makes his own breakaways, because if you give him even a little bit of a hole, he'll just take it and run with it. But besides just McDavid, the Oilers looked really good too. Cam Talbot's looked really good so far. I love that Draisaitl and McDavid are playing on the same line, even though, like we talked about in the first podcast, I am still worried about the depth. If you're not splitting them up, I wonder how that second line's going to be, even though they have Ryan Nugent-Hopkins. But besides the fact they seem to do all right, McDavid and Draisaitl are basically unstoppable together. I think they're going to be amazing this season, and they might make it into the top 3 like you guys had them in. I just didn't know if the depth was going to allow them to be that successful over a full season. Even as much production as McDavid and Draisaitl would put up on their own, I just didn't know if the rest of the lines would come out to play enough, but it doesn't even look like it matters. McDavid's probably going to put up 110 points, 115 points, and they're definitely going to be right up there near the top of the league.
Touching on that as well, I mean, I watched the game, and even their second, third, and fourth lines, they look like they played well. I mean, Nugent-Hopkins, I think, had a great game. Just watching him, the way he was playing around and skating, he seemed to be an effective player out there.
He's definitely underrated. I think he's gone under the radar because he hasn't exactly produced like a first overall pick should, but that wasn't like a normal draft year. A bit of a weak year as far as high caliber talent goes.
Yeah,
I'm impressed with him though. He's a good two-way player and he can score. He can put up points. Like you said, definitely a suitable second line center.
Yeah, him and Strome's line look to be playing really well, and they seem to have some decent chemistry. We're making some good passes and plays in the offensive zone. I mean, when you have Connor McDavid in front of you leading the charge, putting up 2-3 points a game, you don't really need to have the best second line in the NHL. You can just kind of survive with what you got up top.
Their defense played very well, too.
Yeah, did it? I didn't. I mean, I watched a good amount of the game, but I wasn't really honed in on their defense, considering you're always looking for McDavid and Draisaitl to be out there.
They were in Calgary's offensive zone a good 60-70% of the time anyway, so he didn't really get a good look on it either.
I think they're going to be so good this season. Just even after watching them the first time, I know I had my doubts, but like I said, they're going to be right up there at the top of the league. They've been so impressive, and it's just tough to look at McDavid and not think that they're going to be in the top 3 of the league this year. But let's move on to Pittsburgh, because we were comparing Crosby and McDavid just a minute ago. We're talking about how I was reluctant because, a bit of a traditionalist when it comes to hockey, and I was reluctant to give McDavid the reins as the best player in the league. But it's tough to watch him and just not marvel at how good he is. And as good as Crosby still is, I think McDavid takes over that first spot. But again, besides that, the Pittsburgh Penguins have been awful. They've been atrocious. To lose 10-1 to the Blackhawks like they did, which makes me feel better about the Blackhawks this year, but still, you can't lose 10-1 to a team.
I still don't think the Blackhawks are going to be there.
I don't know. I think the Blackhawks are going to make the playoffs. They looked pretty good, and if Kane keeps having chemistry with Schmaltz and Hartman like he's had, I think you're going to see them pick up right where they left off last year and finish in one of those top 3 playoff spots if they play again like they did last year.
How fast is it before Pittsburgh drops Antti Niemi? I mean, because he's just a terrible goalie.
I think you'll see Tristan Jarry up in the lead this year.
Yeah, I was listening to Darren Dreger, who was on one of our local radio shows in Buffalo, The Instigators, which has Andrew Peters and Craig Rivet, former Sabres, and they just talk about hockey. So they had Darren Dreger on as a guest, and he was saying that he was talking to Jim Rutherford, the GM for the Penguins, and they were talking about the goaltending situation, and this was just before the season started, and Jim Rutherford felt really confident in both Matt Murray and Niemi, but he said that Jarry probably would be a call-up at some point in the season. But Dregs was saying that if this goaltending situation keeps up, even for one more game, they're going to have to get rid of Niemi and bring Jarry up, and he'll have to make some starts until Murray can find his rhythm, because it's been pathetic so far. They were talking about just how beatable Matt Murray looked in that game against Chicago. It was a bit worrisome how many holes there were. And, I mean, with Niemi playing like he did last year for the Stars, I'm surprised that the Penguins really even wanted him. But I guess they felt like he could come in and be a decent backup. But I'd almost rather have Tristan Jarry up there, who looked decent when he played last year.
Jarry had a really good season in the AHL last year. He went 28-15 with a 2.15 goals against average, so...
A couple different people were saying that Jarry looks like he'll definitely be a starter in the future in the NHL, which, how much more goaltending can Pittsburgh want? You go from Fleury to Murray, and now you have Jarry coming up. I'm still confident Murray will find his rhythm and start playing well, but it's been a rough start to the season for sure for him.
Yeah.
And it's only been 2 games, so I'm not counting Pittsburgh out yet, but I think they're getting over a loss of depth I think they had in the offseason. Bonino's gone, Colin's out of there. They basically don't have 3rd and 4th line centers at this point.
Yeah.
So
right.
I think just when they get acclimated to doing that, when they start finding their rhythm again, they'll be where they should have been this year.
I don't think it'll be too much time until you see Daniel Sprong up in the NHL.
Yeah, because they need that scoring depth. I know what you mean, Tom. I was surprised, though, watching them, because when I saw them play against St. Louis in the first game of the season, they looked so good starting off that game. That first period, they pretty much dominated. And I know they finished the first period down 1-0, but I thought that they so outplayed St. Louis. But what was cool to see is to see St. Louis, who is not near as fast as the Penguins. They're just typically a bigger, more physical team than Pittsburgh is. They definitely made an adjustment near the end of the first, and certainly in between the first and the second. And they did what you have to do against a team like the Penguins, who is a fast transition, puck-moving team, similar to how the Sabres are trying to become. And they started taking away the transition game, clogging up the neutral zone, and when they were in their own zone, they were doing a great job of moving the puck out, and they were extremely physical on the Penguins, which is what you have to do if you're a team like the Blues facing a massively skilled team like the Penguins or Tampa, or even a team like Chicago who plays that style. You just have to get really, really physical and take away the transition game, which was cool to see St. Louis adjust and play so well doing. And then you have Pietrangelo, who came out and scored 2 goals, with the big one being the overtime goal. The Penguins have just had a rough start to the season. I'm sure they'll get it back on track, but the goaltending is certainly worrisome.
I think, I don't know, maybe I'm reading into it too much, but do you think possibly it could be that, Matt Murray was obviously a starter and obviously played really well last year, but with Fleury gone, I think it's kind of just like weird for him not having that safety net to fall back on or not having that second goalie to push him?
I don't think that's reading into it too much at all. I think that's exactly what's going on. I mean, like if you're a guy like Matt Murray, who's a young goalie in the NHL, who's recently had a lot of success, you always have that fallback guy. Like if you have a guy like Fleury to fall back on, I mean, it's a lot easier for you to think, okay, maybe I can mess up here or there, but I think the pressure's starting to get to him a little bit.
Yeah, I definitely think that's part of it. He has to be the guy now in Pittsburgh. There's nobody else. You have Niemi behind you, and I'm sure in training camp and in practice and just seeing him in general, he's got to know Niemi isn't really that good as an NHL goalie. All the pressure's on him now, basically. So that could be part of why he's not performing, and I think that Fleury's a big reason for why Murray is where he is now. He probably helped him become a better goaltender, and then, him knowing that Fleury could come in and help the team out if he's not having a good game certainly must have been a good feeling. As much as, you could say he might have been worried about losing his job to Fleury, which happened a couple times, it was probably more of a relief knowing that not all the pressure was on him as the team's goaltender.
So you guys want to move on to Vegas next?
Yeah, I thought they were awesome in that first game.
I was a guy that had Vegas in the bottom 3 teams for me this year, but I don't know if it was just them playing well or the Stars playing pathetic, but I cannot believe they came out with that win.
I mean, they're coached great by Gerard Gallant. They looked solid. I mean, really, watching them, they didn't look, I guess, out of sync. They didn't look like they were running all over the place. They look like they know what kind of team they are. They're going to have to grind out wins. They're going to have to play smart and take advantage of chances when they get them. You have James Neal, who scored on both of those big opportunities for him. But they definitely don't win that game if Ben Bishop doesn't get that freak accident where Riley Smith's shot catches him up just in between the mask bars, which is another kind of thing that worries me about goalies in the league. Ben Bishop doesn't seem to have like an abnormal mask for many other goalies. You might see, especially with Bishop, might decrease the space in between the bars on his mask a little bit to stop anything like that from ever happening again. But that was a freak accident. He leaves the game to go get stitches, and then you have to put in Kari Lehtinen, who, to his credit, was cold coming in. But again, one of those Stars goalies from last year.
Right.
Who are terrible, to be honest. I mean, no mincing words. Like, they're awful. And, they let in 2 goals and lose the game.
Yeah, and I think talking about goaltending, you got to look at it on both sides, too, because Fleury played lights out.
He played really, really well last night.
Yeah, it was great to watch. He looked like vintage Marc-Andre Fleury. He made so many great saves on the Stars. He looked super solid in that. Honestly, if, like you said, I had Vegas as finishing second last in the league this year. If they can get Fleury to play like that, which he's still got a ton left in the tank, so he probably will, and they can play a smart possession game like they were last night and really try to grind out games, they won't finish bottom 3. I still think with expansion talent, you won't see them really get out of the bottom 5. I have my doubts. Maybe they'll prove me wrong, but Fleury could certainly bring that team out of the bottom 3.
Yeah, when you have a world-class goaltender like that, I know I ragged on him at first, but it's such a game changer having someone like that. It's a guy who can have come in and steal games for you. And obviously he's not going to do that every night, but if he can do that one night a week and do that every couple of games, it definitely could be not a great team, but a decent team that can finish, 6th, 7th last.
One move that really is puzzling me, though, about the Golden Knights is that they recently waived Calvin Pickard, and I think they picked up Malcolm Subban, and I don't get that at all. I honestly don't understand why they would do something like that. I mean, I guess they think that they could probably salvage Malcolm Subban, but to drop a guy like Calvin Pickard, who has started in this league before and who could be a more than serviceable backup, I just don't understand that.
Yeah, well, you never saw what was going on at training camp. You never saw what was going on at practices. I mean, they could have seen him and he could have continued like he was in Colorado, just not strong, letting in some bad goals, and he could have been very inconsistent for them, and they were looking for a guy who maybe they could bring up in Malcolm Subban, a guy who has a decent amount of potential, and they could kind of mold him into the way they want him to be.
All right, I want to get to the Winnipeg Jets then, who you guys were like super high on this season for making the playoffs. And I know it's just one game, so you can't really rag on them. but 7-2 against the Maple Leafs. And again, the Maple Leafs are a really, really good team. I have them finishing second in the Atlantic, but 7-2 in your home opener, you're in your own building, and you get embarrassed like that. Like Laine said, it was just embarrassing getting beaten like that in their own building. They looked terrible. Their defense was embarrassingly bad. Steve Mason, I'd say about 3 of the goals weren't really completely his fault, but he didn't look good. And then Hellebuyck coming in, let up a couple of bad ones. Just a tough game for them.
Yeah, I didn't get a chance to watch much of the game, but from what I saw, from the very little that I did see, I mean, it was just all Toronto in that game. I mean, you have a line with Matthews and Marleau just all over the Winnipeg defense. I think it's just, pretty unfair, especially like when your defense is playing that terribly. They're just going to feed off of that and just kill you.
Oh.
Well, see, I don't think that it was all Toronto and the fact that the Jets did actually outshoot the Leafs. I think, obviously, the defense played bad and the goaltending needs to play better, but the Jets just weren't capitalizing in general. You can't go 0 for 8 on power plays. Patrik Laine just couldn't get it done in that left spot. I mean, I think it's definitely something that's going to change. They're definitely going to improve the power play and get that number up. But, I mean, the 7-2 loss, I blame it for a good amount on the defense and goaltending. Yeah, the offense didn't show up, but it was just kind of a fluke for me. That team's just not going to go 0 for 8 on power plays every night with the star power they have.
Yeah, I watched the first period of that game, and Winnipeg seemed to be all over Toronto. I mean, they had 4 power plays, and they just couldn't capitalize on any of them. That's what killed them that game.
Like I said,
And their goaltending sucks.
that goes with my point about Winnipeg, is that their offense isn't the problem here. It is their defense and goaltending that can kill them this season. And as much as we thought the defense looked a little bit more solid, the goaltending is a huge question mark for that team, a huge question mark. And I think that's what's going to keep them out of a playoff spot. I think they'll be right on the bubble because of the offense, but it was hard to watch, really. I think more than even their goaltending, though, that night, it was certainly the defense. They looked like friggin' Colorado's defensive coverage last year. It was hard to watch.
I mean, when you try to improve your defense by signing Dmitry Kulikov, I don't really know what you're really expecting.
I do think that Winnipeg could trade for Philip Grubauer.
Grubauer's not a starter. I can tell you from watching him.
Yeah,
in
I mean,
Washington,
if
he's not a starter.
if he was a
13
starter,
and 6 last year,
if he was a starter,
Well,
Vegas would have picked
and
Washington.
sitting behind Holtby.
He's not a starter.
If he was a starter-
I mean, like, I'm a Washington guy. Like, I obviously watch Washington a lot, and I've seen him play in games, and he's not a starter.
Like I said, if he was a starter, Vegas would have picked him over Picard.
Yeah, but I mean, at some point you got to take a chance, I mean, look at Cam Talbot sitting behind Lundqvist. Look at what he's turned out to be. Matt Murray sitting behind Fleury for a little bit.
Yeah, but that's the thing, is they kind of showed that talent while they were sitting behind those guys. Grubauer's come in and played well at times, but he hasn't come out and shown the type of talent that Talbot or Ranta or Murray did. That's definitely, like Nino said, that's why Las Vegas didn't pick him in the expansion draft, and instead they picked Calvin Picard.
He had some pretty damn good stats last year. He went 13 and 6 with 2 overtime losses, a 2.04 goals against average, and a 9.26 save percentage.
Yeah, but he was playing on the best team in the league.
With one of the best defenses in the
Yeah,
league.
but I mean, that doesn't always friggin' accumulate to you playing good. It's just playing behind the best team. Look at Matt Murray this year so far. He let up 10 goals in one game, and he's playing behind one of the best teams in the league.
I mean, I understand the point. It's just, if you're going to trade picks or trade prospects to go and get a goalie who you think can come in and start for you, especially since they've paid, Steve Mason the money they did, and they have Hellebuyck, who I think they eventually want to, make into their starter, because he was good in college and he's looked good. He's looked really good at times for them, but I don't know if they're ready to go out and acquire a new goalie yet, but I guess Grubauer would be a candidate. It just depends on how good he is. Like Minch had said, I haven't watched Washington enough to really know just how good Grubauer is. Obviously, his stats are really nice, but you have to show the talent while doing it, too. You really have to be like a difference maker in that, not just a beneficiary of a good team. And even though a good team doesn't make you a good goalie, like you said, Tom, there are ways to evaluate it by actually watching the game and seeing the type of saves a goaltender makes, the type of goals he does let in. And you can kind of determine a goalie's talent based off of that. I want to go to what Minchin was talking about earlier before we started the podcast, though, about how the Avalanche beat the Rangers, which was interesting.
Interesting to say the least. I mean, you have a team like New York, Henrik Lundqvist. Obviously, they're not where they used to be, but to get beat by the Colorado Avalanche,
Well, fairly decent team like the Rangers. They'll get beat by a bad team like Colorado every once in a while. I mean, you're not going to see Colorado lose every game, but they looked really good doing it, actually. I was more surprised with how well Colorado played than how bad the Rangers were, because I fully expect the Rangers to be a competitive team this year. I was just interested in how well Colorado looked to be composed during that game. Their passing was fairly decent. McKinnon and Duchesne looked really well. I think Tyson Barrie looked awesome for them. It was a good game all around for Colorado, and I think it's really going to lend to Duchesne being gone even sooner. If that type of production keeps up, there's no way he stays in Colorado more than a couple weeks. There's just no way. They'll cough up whatever prospects or picks Joe Sakic wants for him.
Yeah, but then to talk about it as well, I mean, Semyon Varlamov was in net and did put up a .949 save percentage, so I guess you just kind of wait and see how he does, because we all know in the past he has been the definition of inconsistency. But who knows, maybe this is the year where he finally finds it, but
Did he win the Vezina 3 years ago? Was it
I don't think it was 3
No,
years
it
ago.
4 years ago?
Oh,
Did he ever win a Vezina?
I don't think.
Yeah, he won the Vezina. Or did he lose to Tuukka Rask? I can't remember if he won or not.
Yeah, you might be thinking of him losing to Tuukka, or you might be thinking of Bobrovsky.
Yeah, you know what? I think he did lose to Bobrovsky that season. But he's been right up there for the Vezina before, and I don't think he'll have that type of season again. But like you said, he's extremely inconsistent. We said in the first podcast, he's one of the most inconsistent goalies we've ever seen, and it would be amazing to see him come out and have some great season this year. But the chances are so low that happens with how bad Colorado's roster looks. But I was impressed with them in that first game. I think the Rangers are going to have some scoring troubles this season.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, not that they have a terrible offense, but they just don't have that guy to me. You know, Rick Nash is aging. Mika Zibanejad's a great player, but he's not Derek Stepan, who they just lost. I don't know. I don't see them being a great team this year.
Speaking of that, Zibanejad and Shattenkirk look deadly on the power play. I think with the first game of the season, teams are really just looking for positives to come away from the game with, like the Sabres against Montreal, and Colorado obviously played well in their first game. The Rangers had some positives, and you don't want to lose to a team like Colorado in your season opener, but you know, there's always positives for a team to take away from in their first game. First game of the season is really just getting your feet wet, getting the legs moving, and getting the team acclimated to the NHL playing style again, and you're not just in training camp or practice anymore. All right, and we're going to finish on the Coyotes-Ducks game. I was really happy watching the Coyotes. They looked super fast. Clayton Keller with his first goal of his NHL career. That line looked really good. Brendan Perlini, who has an awesome shot, came in and ripped one. They got some good production from their young players, which is really good to see. I think in a couple seasons, the Coyotes are really going to be a force in the NHL, honestly. They just have too much good young talent for them to not build on that and be really good in the future. But obviously, when it comes to that, and having a lot of young talent, you are going to have a team that has trouble finishing and holding leads, and that's exactly what the Ducks capitalized on. A veteran team, lots of scorers, big, physical, and they came right back with 4 unanswered goals on the Coyotes and looked super good doing it. It was a really good game to watch. It looked awesome. I only caught a little bit of it, but the game recap looked really good.
I just have a question on why Louis Domingue was in net. I mean, I don't know if they were having problems with Ronta or anything, or if he was dealing with an injury, but I definitely thought he was going to come in and be the starting guy. I was kind of puzzled.
Yeah, I don't know. I hope that it's just kind of a thing for just that first game of the season, and they're going to let Ronta start the next game and take it from there, but maybe it'll be more of a split games type of deal, because Louis Domingue has looked like a pretty solid goalie in the past. Maybe he did play just as well or better than Ronta in training camp, and they want to see who takes hold of that starting job.
Hopefully that's what they're doing, but to me that was just, Ronta's got to be the guy that you start.
Yeah, especially when you trade for a guy like that and give up the assets that the Coyotes did. You really probably are expecting that guy to start day one.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't know. He's a proven guy in the NHL, is a great backup. I believe he's even started in some situations, and Louis Domingue has just kind of been a career backup player. I don't really understand the move.
obviously it depends on who plays well through training camp. And again, if they want to go the split games route to start the season and let one guy really take over the starting role, I guess that's what they want to do. But I think it's really positive for them looking at the amount of young talent they have. It was really cool seeing Clayton Keller get his first goal, and they played so well for most of that game, and then the Ducks kind of took over there, and you really saw why they're going to be a Stanley Cup contender this year. Corey Perry with a really nice game, Nino. I know you really think he's going to have a bounce-back year. He had a couple goals, and the Ducks looked really good coming back from going down against the Coyotes, which was obviously a negative thing for them. You don't ever want to go down that bad or that early to a young team like that, especially being a big physical veteran team that's going to challenge for a Stanley Cup this year. But they did a great job clawing back, and you really saw them explode like we know the Ducks can with all that talent. And they don't even have Getzlaf in right now, which is the really cool part of that.
Yeah, that's crazy. And I mean, the other players, Raquel stepped up that night. Obviously, Corey Perry did. It was just, they played a great game.
All right, and we're going to end it on that. Hopefully we've given you another good hour of the podcast. We've covered just about everything. I guess more of the interesting stories that have happened since Wednesday night when the season started. We got another full week of hockey coming up, which is awesome. It's great that the league's back again, and we'll have another podcast next week for you. So thanks for listening.
This has been the Center Ice Hockey Podcast. Please like and subscribe for more, and follow us on Twitter for the latest updates and news. Thanks for listening, and join us next time for more Center Ice Hockey coverage.